that means. We're talking the latest rumors in wrestling, including some of WWE's original draft ideas and the current status of people like Cain Valasquez and Paige. I'm Ryan Joy, and I run MinutesToBellTime.com, a website database tracking pro wrestling around the world. On today's show, we have a pile of rumors to sort through. We also have headlines for the last 24 hours. John DeConnie is in the house, and this is the Daily Wrestling News Show for October 14th, 2021, where we sort through all the bullshit in wrestling news to find you the truth. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and everything, and we are going to be on demand on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and stuff later this afternoon. John DeConnie, welcome to the show.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for having me. How are you today?
Very good, very good. We have a whole bunch of stuff to get through. You have, I think you came up with about 27 and a half rumors for today that we whittled down to the top 25. So kick us off. Let's go. Let's get through some rumors today.
All right. What do we know about the wrestling return of one Cain Valasquez?
Cain Valasquez is making his return to AAA wrestling, and he's also taking some indie dates too. But he is returning on December 4th to AAA. That was announced on their Heroes and Villains show, as well as Twitter. We don't know anything about what he'll be doing, whether he's going to, tag match probably, or who his opponents will be, or who his partners will be. His history is only 4 matches in all of pro wrestling. He had a match at Triple Mania where he teamed with Cody and Psycho Clown. He later appeared at MSG in the Hulu Theater show, which is a poster I have hanging behind me on my wall because I was at that show, Invading New York. He wrestled Brock Lesnar in Saudi Arabia, and he did a WWE house show in Mexico City. Other than that, that's his entire career. So good for Cain Velasquez for getting back to wrestling, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. He's very entertaining when he's not injured. Unfortunately, throughout his UFC and wrestling career, he's been injured an awful lot.
Yeah. Well, and WWE didn't give him much of a chance. They brought him in, signed him to a huge contract, immediately released him as soon as they finished feeding him to the beast. I think they wanted to get that notch back on Brock Lesnar's belt and then, move on. So
then who cares what happens afterwards?
Yes.
All right. We've had Mr. CM Punk talking a little bit about New Japan and his willingness to battle some of their top stars. What do you know about that?
Well, it's interesting. I guess he went on a podcast or whatever, and he said he'd be open to the idea of wrestling New Japan people as they come through the forbidden door, if something pops up or whatever. So there's no Tony Khan's not talking about it. There's no match announcements or anything like that. But him versus Kenta is a huge, huge match. If ever it comes, if ever that comes up. Kenta is the person who invented CM Punk's finisher. And for years and years, there's always talk about how CM Punk stole it or whatever. The whether he stole it or not, I mean, it's wrestling. You can use a move, whatever. I mean, Jake the Snake Roberts would have lawsuits until he was, forever if he was going to go after everybody who used DDT. But the thing is, when Hideo Itami, that's Kenta, showed up in WWE, they wouldn't let him use the finisher that he invented because they had such a soreness over CM Punk. So there's a bit of there's something there that I think they could build off of. So that would be good.
Yeah, there's just that story almost writes itself.
Yeah, it does. There's definitely a natural rivalry. So, and I think people would be interested to see that happen. So, yeah,
good stuff. Okay, this is always one of my favorites. WWE has filed for a new trademark. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, not much really rumor there, right? It's kind of matter of fact, right? So the Suplexorcist, which you told me there's a shirt already out for this. This is apparently Roman Reigns vanquishing the world of Suplex City, Brock Lesnar or whatever. That's one trademark. They also filed for a trademark, speaking of the bloodline, for Solo Sequoia. Is that how we say his name now?
Yes.
I think it's just Sifafa too, but
Yeah.
And then also Axiom. I don't know what Axiom is. So
Okay.
that'll be something that we see shortly, I'm sure.
Okay. Dom Mysterio. We all had our theories about him facing Dad. We wanted it all the way back at SummerSlam. It may not happen at all, huh?
Well, Ray has said in the past that he really doesn't want to do that. He really doesn't want to wrestle Dom. And Dom did an interview with Sportskeeda recently, and he talked about how the stuff that you see on the television is exactly how they are in real life, where Ray is trying to kind of guide him and Dom is kind of not wanting to be guided type of thing. That's kind of exactly what we see. But Dom also said he really isn't comfortable with the idea of him facing his father. But he did mention some interesting like storyline elements. He said that, his uncle was Rey Mysterio, and then when his dad was on WCW, he was Rey Mysterio Jr., but when he came to WWE, he dropped the junior and was just Rey Mysterio. So they don't have a junior right now, which is the tradition in Lucha Libre. So what Dom would love to see happen is like a WrestleMania moment where Ray picks Dom's opponent, and it's like an impossible opponent, but somehow Dom will win the match. And after the match, Ray gifts him the name and the mask, and he becomes Rey Mysterio Jr. So I think that sounds really cool, but I don't think in any circumstance whatsoever do I see Vince McMahon signing off on them. Let's take this unmasked guy and make him masked, and let's add a junior to his name, because boy, does he himself is a junior, and he was called Junior for many years, and because of that, he has a horrible stigma and taste in his mouth. He's never going to let that word be uttered on his television. Hence why Rey Mysterio Jr. is not Rey Mysterio Jr.
I as a junior, I can tell you that can be very annoying.
Well, it was very annoying to Vince.
All righty. Moving right along. TK, Tony Khan, is in talks with a major mass media conglomerate. What do we know about this?
He is talking with Warner Media about putting the AEW tape library up in some way for everybody to kind of get a hold of it. Because right now it's kind of fragmented. You can go to Bleacher Report and get the past pay-per-views. You got to pay for them, right? Because it's a replay. And Dynamite, you can get a lot of them on the TNT app, but there's not really a good way for people to access the whole back catalog the same way that there is with WWE on Peacock. So I guess he's in talks with Warner Media, and at this point they have 2 years of Dynamite. They have a bunch, almost 10 pay-per-views probably at this point, and they have Fight for the Fallen and stuff like that came before they launched Dynamite. They also have, and Tony mentioned this, was the what's it called? The House Always Wins house show that they did. Tony mentioned that he'd like to get that on whatever streaming platform. So he's looking to target, Dynamite, Rampage, Dark, The House Always Wins, past pay-per-views on some sort of streaming platform. So obviously he should, because there's a ton of money there. Just ask WWE with Peacock, right?
So. Absolutely. Good stuff. It would be great to, just be able to easily find some of those amazing pay-per-view matches that they've had in these 2+ years. So good. Yeah. Hopefully that comes to fruition sooner rather than later. Okay, moving on. Draft just wrapped up last week. There are some high hopes for a couple of the call-ups. What are you hearing?
Yeah, it's interesting. Ridge Holland, I guess the idea is that he is considered a future WWE champion already, potentially. And maybe Von Wagner will be his opponent, his nemesis, since Von Wagner got the big pin on him on NXT earlier this week to pin Ridge Holland as he went out of the territory. But Dave Meltzer kind of mentioned this in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, then everybody else picked it up, about the whole idea of Ridge Holland being associated with the future WWE champion. He also, as an aside, Meltzer also wrote, "I'm still processing that WWE thinks Ridge Holland could be a future WWE champion. They do, in parentheses, and felt Cole had to be a manager if moved to the main roster." So irony is very weird there. But they also have high hopes for Austin Theory in the same sentence, so we'll see. They had a couple of looks at Theory now. So
yeah, well, there's a guy that, he unless he turns out to be as annoying in real life backstage as he was as part of the way. I mean, that's a guy that got blue chipper written all over him. You can see big things for him.
Yeah, and he's young.
Okay. Yeah, he checks all those boxes that they love. I mean, he's not enormous in size, but he certainly is of a size that they can do good things with.
Yep.
Okay, moving along. The Queen's Crown Tournament. There was a last-minute change of plans in the opening round. What do you know about that?
Well, not necessarily last minute. Fightful reported that Liv Morgan was originally slated to win her match against Carmella, but at least as of Showtime, when that match aired, or leading up to the match that day or whatever, it was changed to where she was meant to lose the match. Fightful also reported in the same report that there has been a lot of frustration with the booking of the women's division of late. And I guess you can see that. I mean, I'm sure a lot of women are frustrated with the time that they're getting.
Sure.
And also, hey, it's the Bianca Belair loss in 4 seconds is still recent in memory. No matter what you think of Bianca, that was obviously not a SummerSlam caliber match.
Okay. Speaking of goodness, sorry. The women's division, Paige just keeps teasing this comeback. Is there actually any there?
WWE has kept a ton of people on the shelf for injuries. Paige's injuries have been nasty, though. So I don't know, if she's going to get a full clearance. But, who would have thought that after 7 years, Edge would return from injury? And who would have thought Daniel Bryan would return from injury after all the time? So, there's obviously, there's hope. There's something there. Her contract is up in June of 2022, according to Bleacher Report interview that she did last August. It's so weird that they have released all these people, all these 57 people this year. Paige is somebody they're not even using, and they haven't let her go. That's weird to me, but maybe they know something. Maybe she can be cleared and she's a threat or something like that, but they don't want to use her themselves. I'm not sure what the story is there. Of course, they had the movie thing with her too. Right. Maybe if they think there's legs with a sequel or something, who knows?
Yeah, there's always money in the sequels, right?
I'm not sure what the sequel for Paige would be.
Okay. Speaking of changing plans here and there was some original draft plans for AJ and Omos that they eventually went away from.
WrestleVotes reported this, and I've talked about WrestleVotes here before. It's a Twitter account, and there's not really a named person associated with it, but WWE had seriously considered breaking the pairing of AJ Styles and Omos during the draft to the point where that was the plan until people of power, including a main Raw talent, spoke up and expressed thoughts on how Omos isn't quite ready for singles yet. And they actually listened. That's from WrestleVotes. So I suspect there must be some merit to that. I mean, if I were to look at the situation, I'd say it's probably true. Omos, I don't think he's quite ready to stand on his own yet.
Just the fact that, someone this is complete conjecture, but doesn't it just kind of feel like the person who they might actually listen to that's been involved with this pairing and whatnot? It sounds like something like Randy Orton pulled somebody aside and went like, look, he's a big guy. He's not quite ready to be on his own yet. Don't screw him up like that.
I think so. If I were to, again, it's speculation. But in the days since the draft, we've seen him in singles competition against Riddle, and Randy Orton's involved in that. So it would make sense to me. It could also be AJ Styles, quite frankly, right? Somebody who's very close to him at this point. But yeah, I would think that it looks to me like they really want to break him off as a singles guy. So now they're going to give him a few singles matches to to try to get him there. But until he's wrestling 12-minute matches on, which you hardly ever see on Raw anyway, you can't really know whether he can do it. Because right now it's a lot of smoke and mirrors stuff where he doesn't have to sell anything, and he just
he barely has to move in a lot of his matches.
Yeah, he stands in the middle of the ring until somebody walks by, and then he does the choke bomb thing.
Exactly. So. Okay. Now, there was another team they were thinking of splitting up before settling on which team got split up. What do you know about another tag team that just narrowly missed going their separate ways?
PW Insider reported that there was serious consideration into breaking up the Street Profits. The idea that Montez Ford would go to Raw with Bianca Belair, Angelo Dawkins would stay on SmackDown. PW Insider said that talk lessened over the course of last week, and instead T-Bar and Mace ended up split as a team as of SmackDown. Boy, that just feels dumb to me. I mean, it's like, why would they do that? I mean, I know why they would do that, but, come on.
Yeah,
Montez
exactly.
Ford and Angelo Dawkins. And you can kind of, here you go. If you think back over the last 3-4 months, Montez Ford has had a bunch of singles matches too, and not with low profile talent. So you kind of get the idea that, okay, makes sense. Maybe they would do something like that, right? He had a singles match against Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see them doing it. I don't think there's any BS there.
Good stuff. Dawkins has come a long way. I mean, very early on, I remember joking with one of my buddies who's a big wrestling fan that clearly Dawkins was the Marty Jannetty of the two, but he's gotten a lot better, and they work so well as a team. But it's to the point now where if they split them up, I don't think Dawkins would get totally lost in the mix. But Ford is obviously the future star of the two.
I think of Dawkins more as the Jim Neidhart rather than the Marty Jannetty.
Okay.
Where he's got a few more runs in him afterwards.
Sure.
I don't, Montez Ford may go on to great things like Brett did, and Dawkins, I think he is great and everything. I don't think he quite gets out of the spot that he's in.
Yeah.
I don't think we really see him ascend much further, which is what Jim did, right?
There you go. Okay, we have our first little nugget on Gable Stevenson. He's on the main roster, but how soon might we see him?
Well, Dave Meltzer wrote in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that it was known that the company wants to feature Stevenson all year on the show before the idea is of him starting as a regular after college wrestling season ends in March, with the idea of a WrestleMania debut. I don't know what they do with him for WrestleMania. I'm sure they've got a good idea, but they've got to put him in there with somebody very, very good because he's not going to have any experience at that point. So,
can you just see a Chad Gable Stevenson match somewhere in his future?
They will definitely change Chad's name again before that if that's what they do. There's, Otis Chad is a good option though. Like Vince likes. Certainly likes Otis more than he does Chad Gable. Maybe that's what they do because Otis has really good amateur wrestling credentials. So you could see that. Absolutely. Otis managed by Shorty G with Chad Gable.
Yeah. All righty. Okay. The UBS Arena in Long Island has added a big name to the November 29th Raw promotion.
Yeah, WWE announced that Roman Reigns will be at the UBS Arena. We don't know because they announced that locally. We don't know if that means he'll be on the show. It presumably does not mean he'll be on the show unless they feel they need ratings too. In case they'll put him on the show. As of 2 days ago, when they made this announcement, WWE had sold 2,837 tickets for their show at UBS. Meanwhile, AEW, running the same building, shortly within a couple of weeks or whatever, they have sold 7,536 tickets.
Yikes!
So that's a yikes moment. I'm sure they're looking at that.
Tribal Chief, come and save us.
Yep. We'll see if Roman means anything for ticket sales.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, we've got an AEW star signing a 5-year contract extension. This is an AEW day one guy.
Yeah, Scorpio Sky spoke with Mike Johnson of PW Insider in an interview, and he said that the contract that they talked about, where it was the all-out buy-in, where Scorpio Sky talked about extending his contract. It was a 5-year deal. So AEW is not signing these guys to short-term contracts. 5 years, that's a significant chunk of time.
Yeah, in wrestling, that's a whole career and then some. Sometimes,
yeah.
Okay, Brock Lesnar. What do we know about his schedule moving forward?
Well, I don't think that there's anything out there definitive. I think I've seen some people saying that he's going to wrestle in Saudi and then he won't wrestle again until Royal Rumble. I don't know. When I look at the landscape, I don't see there that many high-profile matches for Roman Reigns at the moment. There's The Rock, but nobody's talking about The Rock yet. And if Brock Lesnar wrestles Roman at Saudi, he may have to wrestle him many more times in order to kind of lengthen this whole Roman Reigns situation, because they don't really have anybody for him. But so it kind of leads me to the belief that there's going to be a bad finish in Saudi, or a finish that somehow leads us to another match. Yeah. And maybe that's Royal Rumble time. Maybe Brock comes back around the Royal Rumble to set up a match against Roman for WrestleMania. Because if The Rock can't be there for WrestleMania, then Brock Lesnar has to be the front runner to face Roman at WrestleMania.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it would be weird where they've done this before, Brock and Roman at WrestleMania, but this time it'll be switched, where Roman is the heel and Brock is the face. So it's a different program.
It's a different feel altogether for Brock Lesnar being the good guy.
Yeah, and who knows if Paul Heyman switches, right? Like, Roman obviously doesn't need Paul. Paul is supposed to be the talking piece, right, of whatever situation he's in, and most of the time he just stands in the back. So
he hands over the microphone or hands over the belt.
Right. He's very good at that stuff. But.
Yes. That's right. He is the wise man. He's wise at finding his niche.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Jeff Hardy drafted over to SmackDown. He dropped a little hint that he could be bringing a change in ego when he goes there. Does it mean what we all think it means or hope it means?
Well, he was speaking with the Culture State podcast, which is North Carolina, said that he would like to bring the Willow character back before his career is over. So he's had the mask, like the mask maker who made the Willow mask from his Impact days. He's been in contact with that person, and they've been working on a new iteration of the mask and everything like that. He didn't say, though, before his WWE career is over. Maybe he means WWE career. Maybe he doesn't. We know in summer of 2020, he signed a 2-year deal. So it won't be soon if he were to do it outside of WWE, but it's possible. It's possible. Why would WWE have waited this long to do this with Jeff if they were going to do it now? It feels to me like, God, they could get another run out of Jeff Hardy, but they've really beat that character down. I'm not sure he means as much now. Like, could they really spin him up for a run against Roman?
Yeah, he still does get a nice reaction from the crowd, and they really popped for him bringing back his old music a couple weeks and then some ago. But are you interested in seeing, just about anything Jeff has left to do? I mean, no offense to the guy. I mean, he's had a stellar career, but I don't get excited for him anymore. I got excited when he, rejoined his brother and they won the tag titles, and
Sure.
I'd probably watch them go anywhere. But Jeff is a single. I don't know.
Maybe if they do this, they give him the rope to be creative and do this Willow thing. Maybe it will, be a big enough change to where it erases some of that.
Yeah. Okay. We've got Supersized SmackDown coming up this week. Could this mean what some of us think it might mean about hour number 3?
I I think this is the biggest, perhaps the biggest news rumor story of the week, right? Dave Meltzer speculated on the idea that WWE would add a third hour to SmackDown on FS1. Only though if WWE pounds AEW in their head-to-head competition this week, right? This could be them testing the waters, and to me, this all makes sense as a possibility if WWE crushes SmackDown in this 30-minute period. Or I'm sorry, if SmackDown crushes Rampage in this 30-minute period, then I think they could seriously look at putting a third hour on the end of SmackDown, which doesn't sound good to me, but I'm sure sounds great to them. Here's the thing with SmackDown on FS1. SmackDown on FS1 did about 800,000 people the 2 times that it was over there. That would probably beat Rampage right now. So if they did 2 hours of SmackDown on Fox and then switched it over to FS1, would they get 800,000 in that situation, or would it be a much smaller amount if they added a third hour? I don't know the answer to that, but I don't know. 800,000 is going to be the best thing that they get on FS1. So if Fox wants to shell out some money to have that kind of a rating, then it could all be feasible. I just hope it's not.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like I'm sure there's the thinking that, okay, everyone, if you're a wrestling fan, you're changing the channel at 10 o'clock. Why not change to our channel as opposed to the other guy's channel? Because you're changing the channel anyway.
True.
But,
Yeah.
you know, that's part of what's made SmackDown so good in the last year and a half, 2 years, is that it didn't drag like Raw.
Yes.
So why mess with that? Anyway.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So Karrion Kross, he dropped a little hint about things going forward.
So he was speaking. I think I didn't write down where he was saying this. Maybe it was Sportskeeda again. Oh, do you have it? What is it?
Table Talk.
Table Talk. Yep. He said this is what I can say without being deliberately cryptic. We are waiting for something to finish taking its course, Kross explained. She's very good and she's been training like a maniac, like she always does. You can expect to see her anytime or any place. So gosh, it's what we want, right? So we want Kross and Scarlett on the same show working together. It sounds here from his quote though that they're waiting for her in-ring to get a little better, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe she's working an injury, or some sort of.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's there's been every time she gets mentioned, it's you hear somebody talk about her training and this, that, and the other thing, and every time, all I can say, in my own head is she's already in fantastic physical shape. She's, they're not looking to improve the way she looks. Who cares? Like, okay, maybe they've got a big storyline programmed for her somewhere down the line, but just put her next to her man, because the whole entrance, everything gets bumped up when she's there. I'm not worried about seeing her, to throw a snapmare.
Maybe the finish taking its course has more to do with something they're planning to do with the Kross character. Like it's an arc, and somewhere on the arc they have the introduce Scarlett point. So maybe that's what it is. Less than we're waiting for Scarlett to achieve a certain level in something. Because listen, B-Fab, they pulled her up, and she's only had 2 matches as far as I know. So exactly. Scarlett has had more professional matches than B-Fab.
Certainly.
Not in WWE, but
yeah. Well, we shall see down the line. And last but certainly not least, Finn Balor is moving over to Raw. What do we see in his future?
WrestleVotes says that the only speculation they heard over the weekend, that was the weekend between the draft, included a story about how a Raw writer banged the table for Finn Balor to be used in McIntyre's role on Monday nights. We shall see, he says, or they say. So interesting. Don't know what that means. Bang the table for Finn Balor. Don't know if that means Finn Balor will get used that way. Um, will Finn Balor turn heel? You got a face champion over there. Big E also needs opponents. I mean, you got Bobby Lashley that they can go back to. You can spin off Randy Orton from RK Bro. They got plenty. Actually, they got plenty of opponents over there, but none of them are really ready for a match at this moment. So Finn Balor would be a variety. So that'd be good.
So do we see Finn perhaps get a little clubby somewhere down the line?
Possibly. He always does that, with his hands. So could be. For sure.
All right. Well, sir, I would say we are sorted.
All right. Well, then let's talk for a second about Bound for Glory. Al Carl is going to be hosting a Bound for Glory special at some point around Bound for Glory. We don't know what the exact time is, but we do have. Here's the rundown for Bound for Glory. We'll be picking on that show. Everybody will pick make their picks for the night. But we have Christian Cage versus Josh Alexander, Deonna Purrazzo versus Mickie James, Awesome Kong going into the Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame. New X Division champion to be crowned, Trey Miguel versus Steve Macklin versus either Willie Mack, ELP, or Rohit Raju. The Call Your Shot Gauntlet, which has at least Rich Swann, Brian Myers, Moose, W. Morrissey, and Eddie Edwards. The first digital media champion is going to be crowned. It's going to be either John Skyler, Crazy Steve, Falaba, or Jordan Grace. And then announced yesterday, John, the Inspiration will challenge for the Impact Wrestling Tag Team titles against Decay in their first Impact match.
Wow. Wasting absolutely no time.
No. Do you think they're going to win? You think that's how, just roll in there, take the titles?
That's a very Impact thing to do. That was, when Al and I were talking about the tournament that was coming, he had his eyes locked on Chelsea Green because, okay, she's, Deonna hasn't faced her yet. They're best friends. I immediately locked into Mercedes Martinez because I have this thing in the back of my head where Impact loves, you give me somebody with that Stanford stank on them, someone who just came out of WWE, whether it's developmental or main roster. Impact loves to bring them in and rush them right to the top. So they did it with Deonna. I could absolutely see them doing it with the Inspiration.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see, but all right, everybody hang tight. We got to talk about Hangman Page getting his title shot and everything else. Will Ospreay also in the news. We'll talk about all that when we get back from commercial break, so hang tight. We'll see you in a minute. If you love the Daily Wrestling News Show, then I want to tell you how you can support us. First, check out bodyslamclothes.com. You can get a variety of shirts for just $20, and all of them come in the super soft style, and the price you see includes all sizes and shipping. Get 10% off 2 or more shirts with the promo code SHIRTS10. Go to bodyslamclothes.com right now to check it out. And join Joey Jarzenka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca on Friday nights for the Primetime Rundown. They take you through the world of sports, and the show kicks off each Friday at 7 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And each Tuesday, Al Carl hosts the Essential Wrestling Podcast alongside John Smith, myself, John DeConnie, and Gary Mahaffey. It's another week of updates and highlights in the world of wrestling. Here are our analysis on who we think is going to win the week's matches. Coverage begins at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. Pro Wrestling Pick'em. It's a place where you can join or host a Pick'em League to test your predictive skills in the world of pro wrestling. Create an account and join a league now at ProWrestlingPick'em.com so you can play against your friends or play against the universe. And the Body Slam Brigade newsletter, currently going out to over 4,200 people each Friday. It consolidates all the top stories in professional wrestling into a quick-to-read email written by me, for you, for free. Sign up now at BodySlamBrigade.com. And of course, this show, the Daily Wrestling News Show. We're here every day, Monday through Thursday, and occasionally on Friday. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or watch us live on Facebook and YouTube at 10 a.m. This is the Daily Wrestling News Show, and we thank you for your support. All right, Tony Khan went in my mom's basement, not literally. He was on a podcast called My Mom's Basement with Robbie Fox, and he confirmed that Hangman Page will wrestle Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship at Full Gear. He has to win, right, John? they can't set him up to fail again.
I wouldn't think so. So yes, I believe he will take that title.
It's it's weird, right? Because I think Hangman Page should be the next champion, but it shouldn't be. I don't think it should be now. But I trust in the process here, I guess. But it feels like you have many big Kenny Omega matches, like right in the promotion. And don't we have to do Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson after the draw? Like, don't we just have to do that? And shouldn't it be for the title? It seems like a complete it's not an oversight because there's no way they're overlooking that. But it just seems like why would they not give us that match? They set us up for that too. So
yeah, when Hangman took a back seat, he went on his paternity leave there, and they kind of just wrote him completely off the show. It made sense because with the influx of new talent, there was so many more things to do with Kenny. And I think you were the one who said it, like they could stretch this out, and not give us Hangman versus Omega, maybe all the way to Revolution. Yeah. And with all the other options there, that started to make a lot of sense. And then and that's why I didn't want to say that he was going to be the Joker. I mean, yes, it made on one side, on one angle, it made total sense, but I almost didn't want to see it because there was so much more that they had left to do with Kenny's run there, and which is now making me afraid that Kenny's run is going to continue, and that's just going to be oh my God for Hangman if he doesn't win this title.
Yeah, I think it's really bad news for Hangman Page if he doesn't win the title, and I don't think it. I don't know. I want to say I don't think it's the best move for AEW to put the title on Hangman at this point. I really think, and this is me, I'm not Tony Khan. Tony Khan's made a lot of money in this, so so credit to him. But right now, the way I'm looking at the situation, I feel that it should be Bryan Danielson at Full Gear, probably CM Punk at Revolution, and then Hangman Page should probably win at Double or Nothing. So I'm like way, way out. And also, I think they need to get Hangman Page over again because I think he got he's over, but he got pushed way down, kind of beaten down with all that stuff. So I think rebuild him first. So
makes sense. I don't know if they're going to have the patience that that you have, theoretically, but it does make a lot of sense.
If he's crowned new champion, I'm sure we're all going to celebrate, myself included.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be a great moment. So I'll reserve judgment. Perhaps we'll have the super elite blow up and all this stuff. It'll be great. So, all right. Will Ospreay is going to appear at MLW. We've known that for a couple of days because they announced that last week. Last Thursday. But they did come through and say the date is now going to be their December New York City show at the Melrose Ballroom. It was reported on last night's Fusion episode. So Will Ospreay, big signing for MLW. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I certainly don't think they're going to program him against their world champion because I'm sure New Japan doesn't want Will Ospreay to go there and lose any matches.
No.
So
no, but that's a great get for MLW.
Yeah. He is the real world's champion. So there you go. Also from MLW Fusion Alpha last night, it's a pretty newsworthy show. We know that they're going to have Team Contra versus Team Hammer in a War Chamber match, November 6th in Philadelphia. War Chamber is War Games. Contra, the makeup is going to include Fatu and Yosef Samael and some of the other guys, I guess. Hammer has got Richard Holiday and Naduka so far on his team. So we are waiting at least one more person to be added. Tom Lawler lost. He won the Opera Cup last year, and he lost in the opening round to Davey Richards last night. So, and Alexander Hammerstone relinquished the National Openweight Championship. So, like I mentioned, a lot of news coming out of MLW last night. So, Jordan Grace advanced in the digital media tournament. She defeated Johnny Swinger yesterday on Impact Plus. So I do believe, based on the commentary during the Grace Swinger match, that the Bound for Glory match to determine the champion is going to be like a 6 or 8 person scramble type of match. So all these people that are winning are getting put into the Bound for Glory match. So
it's going to be an interesting match.
Yeah. Are we pulling for Jordan? Is that who we're pulling for so far?
I'm always pulling for Jordan, but I don't see her getting a title, considering that's right around the time she's going to be stepping away to do. She's got some national level powerlifting stuff to do right around that time. So I would imagine she's not going to have a lot of in-ring work right around that time.
All right, we're looking at John Skyler, Crazy Steve, Falaba, and Jordan Grace right now. If that is the final list, I am going to pick Jordan Grace. Coastal Championship Wrestling, great friends of the show. They announced today that they are going to be teaming up with Unbranded Brewing to unveil a new CCW branded beer called Triple Chokeslam. And of course, that's a triple IPA. So
very nice.
It's coming out at the next bash at the Brew, which we announced exclusively on Minutes to Bell Time, is going to be include Brian Cage. That was a talent announcement that we broke exclusively. Rich Swann also previously announced that is November 6th. Tickets are available now. I'm excited to be going. I'm going to definitely take a triple chokeslam that night. So.
That sounds like a great show, and you add a nice triple IPA to it. That's good times right there.
Yeah, you forget the back half of the show after you take a triple chokeslam. Okay, so New Japan Pro Wrestling. Travis and I broke down the G1 Climax on Tuesday, and we kind of said that, man, after we get through the next 2 shows, we'll really have a much better idea of what the finals are going to look like. And A Block did us no favors. They had their show yesterday, and basically everybody's tied. They got a 4-way tie going into the last night. So there's about 16 different potential outcomes based on who beats who. Now the other side, the B block, they had their semi penultimate B block event this morning. And Jeff Cobb beat Evil, which eliminates Evil from the running. So now it's down to just Jeff Cobb and Okada. Okada lost to Tama Tonga. So going into the last night, Jeff Cobb has a 2-point advantage over Okada. If Okada beats Jeff Cobb, then Okada wins because they tie on points and Okada won the head-to-head match.
Right.
If Jeff Cobb wins, he wins clean. He's got more points than Okada. If they wrestle to a draw, 30-minute draw, I think it would be, then Cobb also wins because he would be 1 point ahead of Okada because they both would get 1 point for the draw. So Okada, it's a must-win for Okada. He has to beat Jeff Cobb in order to win. Jeff Cobb does not have to beat Okada. So
interesting.
Yeah, and then they are going to be facing one of 4 different guys: Zack Sabre Jr., Kenta, Shingo Takagi, or Kota Ibushi. So whoever, it's going to be Cobb or Okada versus one of those 4. So we shall see.
A lot of interesting matchups there.
Mm-hmm. All right, NXT UK this afternoon, we have Blair Davenport making her return from hiatus. She was suspended. She's being reinstated because Stevie Turner insists on kicking her butt. We'll see how that works out for her. Ilya Dragunov is making his first title defense against A-Kid. John, Al Carl has said that this is the only title defense he needs. He could lose it right here because he's the guy who beat Walter. He's a made man. He doesn't need a long title reign. Do you think they're going to make a kid tonight?
That's very true. I don't know that I see it happening, but it wouldn't be insane if it did. You know, Dragunov is a made man forever. So
yeah. I don't see it happening either. But I agree with Al that, like, yes, Dragunov has that credential, and he doesn't need to do much now. I just don't see a kid as the next champion. I don't think he's the top of the pile there. I think Jordan Devlin's ahead of him, frankly. So
interesting.
Dark side of the ring tonight is Luna Vachon is the subject. So I know Gangrel will be featured in that, right? Because he married. They got married on Halloween. So
yeah.
The marriage didn't last, though. Alas.
So many wrestling marriages.
Oh, go ahead, John.
So many wrestling marriages don't.
Yes, that's true. I am interested in Luna Vachon. I think you were mentioning before, she's a character that we've known for years and years and years and years, right? She's at WrestleMania 9 and 10. So for decades, we've known of Luna Vachon, but it just feels like we don't know anything about her.
Exactly.
We know she's from a wrestling family, but we don't know anything about her.
Yeah, so, very, very interested to tune in tonight.
On Before the Impact tonight, we have Falaba versus Hernandez. That'll put the butts in the seats. Then on the main show, we have an Impact Wrestling champion, Christian Cage, and challenger Josh Alexander meeting in a Bound for Glory summit. We have a battle royal. The winner will receive the final spot in the Bound for Glory gauntlet match and or the Call Your Shot gauntlet. The runner-up gets number 1, so that's horrible. X Division Championship Tournament continues. ELP versus Rohit Raju versus Willie Mack. Savannah Evans versus Lady Frost. Chris Bay versus Chris Sabin. Fallout from Knockouts Knockdown and Rich Swann versus VSK. It's loaded, John. It's a big show.
Yeah. That triple threat. Rohit, Willie, and ELP. Wow, that's going to be good.
With a little slice of Willie Mack. All right. Did we leave any stone unturned?
I cannot imagine that there's anything we haven't covered, sir. Of course, I'm sure there's breaking news coming to Twitter right now that they always do you dirty that way, but
they do.
Other than that, I think we've hit it all.
All right. Well, for John, I am Ryan. We will see you next time.
See ya.